Hey everyone, welcome back to Rally Caps. It's a podcast for artists, entrepreneurs, and everybody in between. I'm Steven.
And I'm Eric.
And today's episode is a fun one. We're talking yet again about, are you trying to not crunch that grape into the microphone?
Oh, sorry.
I kind of wish you did.
I'm just trying to slam some calories before we get
Did you
into
just
this.
swallow that grape whole?
No.
Oh, I was like,
Couple
when
bites.
did the crunch happen? Whoa, you're like a stealth cruncher. That's really impressive.
I'm sorry. These days, if I don't eat, like,
These days, if you don't eat, do you just like get tired or something?
yeah, hangriness is so real for me. It's not even a question.
These days, if I don't eat, my body stops working.
I feel like you can get through it in college. You know, you're like on an empty stomach and blah, like.
And then you just go to the dining hall and smash like 3,000 calories.
Yeah, and then you're fine.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work like that for me, no.
No.
Especially a marathon training, like it just doesn't. Like 2-3 hours not eating.
Hey, comment below. Does your body work well if you just stop eating completely? I don't know.
I'm so sorry.
No, this is good.
Enough grapes.
You know, we used to do cold opens, or we'd attempt to do cold opens for the show, and now we're just rolling it directly into the intro, just to see if people will stick with us for the actual meat of the show, which is today another conversation about gear. Mm-hmm. We've had a couple like this throughout the year of 2024 so far. This one is going to be geared a little more towards, I said geared towards, I didn't mean to, but I did.
The gear year.
It's the gear year. This episode in particular is going to be geared more towards those maybe just starting out in the photography space specifically. So we're going to, in the first half of the episode, really dive into 3 different tiers that we've kind of built out for different levels of where you might be at, from just novice interested in photography all the way up to maybe building your first pro kit, still on a budget, all things considered. And then in the latter half of the episode, we're going to jump into maybe this, but for film cameras, for anyone who might be interested in getting a starter film camera, starter film stocks, things along those lines. So let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
And before we do, hey, if you've been around for a while, you know we love Rally Caps. We love making the show. Putting it on YouTube, putting it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the good places where you can watch and listen. If you've enjoyed the show at any point in time, please do us a favor, leave a rating on Spotify and Apple. And if you're watching this on YouTube right now, feel free to give a like to the video, leave a comment below, and subscribe to the channel, because we have so many more episodes coming out this year. And most importantly, we have our 100th episode of the show coming out by the end of 2024.
Have you mapped out what day that's going to be?
November 11th, I think.
Oh.
If we stay on pace
Sabria's birthday.
weekly, I think it's November 11th. Would be the published date, though, not that'll be the day we actually put the episode live, not the day we record it. So
She'll definitely want to celebrate us and our 100th on her birthday.
definitely, yeah. She could be the featured guest.
Oh.
I don't think she'd like that very much, no.
I don't think so.
I think there are better ways to celebrate her birthday. No, that will not happen. But Spree, you're welcome to come hang out if you want. Yeah, this is going to be a fun episode. Let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
So, tier number 1. Do you have the note up also? I just want to make sure.
On my phone.
You have it on your phone. Okay, great. Tier number 1, we want to start no money involved. You don't have to go out and buy anything. Tier number 1 is simply just using your phone more intentionally. I think that's where a lot of people, professionals, amateurs, really everyone in the range of photography started. It's an amazing tool. Phone cameras are so capable these days. And you have the added benefit of being able to edit to whatever degree that you would like directly within your phone, to share it to any social platform you could possibly want. The sky's the limit, and there's no extra cost for this. Some apps that we recommend for this, Visco and Lightroom Mobile, are obviously 2 pretty standard editing apps. Both have a lot of customizability, flexibility. I think for presets and filters that are easy to just slap on, Visco is a great option. I think if you want a little more fine tuning and control over your images, Lightroom Mobile I personally really enjoy, because you get all of the tools that you get in Lightroom Desktop, Lightroom Classic, but in your phone, and it's amazing.
It's good to hear. Never used it.
It's really great, actually, especially because you have the option to mess with clarity and texture and things that I personally like to reduce a little bit for smartphones, because there are a lot of algorithms, especially within the over optimization on iPhone in particular, trying to get the best, HDR, sharp, great looking image. I think for a lot of photographers, that isn't necessarily the look that they want to go for. So being able to take out some of the overly defined areas of the image and just kind of reduce the clarity, soften things up a little bit more, and have some stylistic control is really great. And you don't have that same control in VSCO. You can add sharpness, you can add clarity, but you can't take it away. And I really like having that in Lightroom Mobile in particular. So that's been a go-to for me. And I kind of combine the two. Also, sometimes I'll put like the base edit on in VSCO, and then I will go to Lightroom Mobile and kind of just soften things up a little bit more just to give it a more natural feel. And I really like that little combination. RNI Film is another app that you can use that has some great film emulation profiles within there for your iPhone images or your regular images too, if you'd like to. And then as a bonus little tip, this isn't photography. This isn't like within the act of making an image, but a little like bonus that you and I both use almost on a daily basis, 2 other apps for our phones, Unfold and Whiteogram or Witagram. I think it's Whiteogram.
Whiteogram.
Unfold is great for scheduling, planning, creating stories, really good for like just creating social stuff. And then Whiteogram is the app that we've been using for a few years now to create just a nice white matte behind your images. So if you see other photographers on Instagram sharing, a full like 3x2 uncropped version of an image, but you see all of that white negative space around it, that's probably, I imagine, maybe how they're doing it. Also, you can put that together in Photoshop if you like, but the whole point of this is to just focus on the phone here. So you can do that very easily in Whiteogram, set the size of the border that you want. It pops it out into a 1x1, so it's easy for Instagram. It's just a really nice tool to have because it's just very simple and allows you to focus on the work. So
I like it for the purpose of reformatting your images too to different sizes and not necessarily posting those natively. So
wait, how so? For Whiteogram?
Yeah, that's typically what I do because I'll post things as a square from Whiteogram and not recrop it. So then I'll do like my 2:3:5:1 aspect ratio photos
with the white matte.
Yeah, or black. Like today I posted with
Oh,
black.
nice. Oh, yeah, because you can color it differently too.
Yeah.
Nice.
You
Yeah.
can do different colors. And so, a lot of times I'll just use it in square format. And if I'm shooting something cinematic, 2:3:5:1 or 16:9, 17:9.
Yep.
Like I'm sharing stills from a video.
Yep.
Or you just want it to look different. Or if you just want to share a 4:3 image, but put it in a square format.
Yep.
But you could export it. And is that what you do? You export it and then you recrop in camera roll?
No.
I didn't know you could do different crops.
Well, it's all 1x1.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I just save it as that. But I'll usually, I usually give padding on the edges of the image because top to bottom, there's going to be negative space depending on what format you're using.
Right.
But then I just add padding on the sides usually. So it's like, I'll throw up some examples on the screen right now so people can see that. But, so that you can have that kind of like classic landscape look or
whenever
look.
you do like the thin white frame across a 4:3 when you post on Instagram, are you doing that in Photoshop?
I do that in Photoshop.
Okay.
Because that border goes all the way around.
Right.
And you can only do that style of border in a setting like Photoshop where you have more control. Whereas this is just like top and bottom. You can crop in the image a little bit if you'd like to on the side. So there's like a little bit of padding on the side.
Yep.
I think you've done like sometimes where it's like full bleed on the edges, but there's top and bottom black or white.
Yeah, that's what I did today. What I was mentioning though is that you could export those in 1x1 and then go to your camera roll and then crop it to be like even borders all the way around.
Oh, got you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
That's not gonna be super accurate though. You have to like
It'd
guess.
be a little more precise for sure.
But I mean, if you're talking like a few pixels, no one's gonna notice.
Matter. Yes. Yeah.
So I've done that as well.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it's sort of a funky process, like going back and forth between camera roll, Whiteogram, camera roll.
Totally.
But I mean,
get fun with it. Get creative with it.
Well, that's what's so fun about mobile photography, especially when it started with VSCO. And there's tools in VSCO too. Like you could put text on things. You can, have fun with it. I want to caution new photographers, don't overdo that stuff.
Yeah.
Like definitely stick with simplicity, but learning the app is exploring the app, and figuring out what it can and can't do. And I feel like so much of my creative voice has been built on using apps the untraditional way or using tools in an untraditional way to come, like, as long as what's the phrase? Zero sum game? No, like no matter whatever road you took,
you got there.
I just felt like Jesse Driftwood.
That felt like the most Jesse quote ever. Whatever road you took, you got there.
It's so true though. And it's to my detriment and to my benefit. I think it allows me, like that mentality has allowed me to do things at a faster pace,
Totally.
but maybe in an inefficient way long term then.
Sure.
So then I lost all the time.
Sure.
You know? But I think it's a really good creative exercise to take whatever tools are at your disposal and just learn through playing. And then obviously you're much more of a type of like, let's read the manual, let's
Yes.
figure out the whole thing and then apply it.
For the sake of efficiency. Yeah.
And so, yeah, totally up to you on how you'd want to go about that. I think to me, it's just so fun to explore it that way.
Totally.
Like the last thing I want to do is read through all the directions.
Totally.
Like, and what's so interesting about how my brain works in that regard, for you, you're like, it gets you pumped up because then you want to go use it.
Yes.
Whereas I'm like, I'm going to lose all of my creative steam if I have to sit here and read the whole thing.
Sure.
And then I'm not going to do it.
Yep.
So, and I know different people resonate with both of our points.
Yep.
And so that's, I guess, something that's not talked about a lot in the photography world. Like you're going to run into that a lot.
Like creative processes.
Yeah. You're going to get into, after iPhone apps, you start getting into mirrorless cameras and even film and that sort of stuff. You're going to have to deal with things like Photoshop and Lightroom and all, tethering and
Yep.
you'll have to learn all those things, but that process will remain the same of how you're going to learn it.
Totally.
So you have to figure out for yourself, how are you going to try to do it trial and error and let your passion kind of lead the way? Or are you going to sit down and, for me, a lot of times I'll hit a breaking point until I'm like, I have to learn how to do this the right way now. And at least like all the passion is still there when I get to that point.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the reason we started the whole conversation about beginner photo gear and things like that with the phone is because we think it's probably wisest to just start with resources that you have available to you currently. Don't go out and spend a bunch of money on a whole camera kit that ends up collecting dust in a few months. Just start with what you have and what you know. Like you said, have that moment of kind of sandbox, playing around, finding new apps, finding new creative ways to express yourself, and using all of the benefits of the form factor of a phone and the immediate feedback of a phone to fuel the passion a little bit more. I actually just posted a set of photos, I think like last week, 10 iPhone photos, all iPhone. And I got so many comments saying, hey, what film stock did you use? Including you. And I was like, that for me was such a validating moment where I was like, yes, like I'm so happy it feels like that, because the whole goal was to kind of achieve the same color palette, the same composition. The way that phones handle highlights also, I think, is just amazing. Like there are truly so many benefits to just like starting with a phone and then using that as a litmus test to see, hey, do I want to spend more money and take this a little more seriously? Because obviously you're not going to show up to a wedding day or a commercial shoot with your phone as your primary camera. But this is a great way to just dip your feet in the water a little bit and then decide if a cannonball is next for you, which, speaking of tier 2, starting to get into like an actual DSLR or mirrorless cannonball. That is actually the primary reference that we have for tier 2 is a Canon camera.
Before we move into that though.
Yes. Phone stuff.
Yeah. What you said about highlights, something that I wish I had known so much earlier if you're on iPhone is just to tap and move your finger down to decrease the exposure because highlights are blown so often in iPhone's camera.
Yeah. I'll go even one step further. You can actually set in your phone to always automatically expose one stop below.
Did not know that.
You can customize that to whatever you want. It could be a third, 2/3, a full stop, 2 full stops. You can preset in the camera app on iPhone, at least. I can't speak to Android, but you can open up your phone so that every time you open it up, camera app is default set to 1 stop below. So you have to do that even less. Sometimes you still need to because depending on how you have it set up, it might be trying to like auto HDR, auto, composite, all these things, which I don't personally really recommend. I think it looks better without, but again, teach their own. You can have as much fun as you want with a camera that is objectively so good. Like, don't discredit what you can do with a phone. Use that to move into more like big purchases, like what we're going to talk about.
And what was so interesting is in like summer 2010, I grabbed my parents' Canon PowerShot.
Okay, yeah.
And funny enough, in an episode just recently, like the rise of quote unquote digital analog.
Oh yeah, like digicams and stuff.
Guaranteed, out of so many people who are listening, in your parents' closet, attic, crawl space,
Yep.
Aunt, uncle, grandparent, whoever.
Yep.
They probably have some sort of old digital camera
Yep.
or film camera that you could have access to because it's literally just collecting dust.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another free option because they're most likely just going to let you have that to practice as well.
Great idea.
And that's not necessarily an upgrade from an iPhone, but gets your hands onto an actual camera
Yeah.
that you can then be really intentional with as well. I remember, the photos I took that summer are trash. But it was that feeling of like, wow, I can zoom in 100 times. And I can photograph this sunset with the birds on the power line. And like that is more than I had access to before. And you're going to find something interesting about that camera. And what's funny is like, or maybe you're in video and you want to use a camcorder, an old camcorder. Like all of that is becoming so popular again. And so that if you learn to use something like that the right way, you're going to get an even bigger tool once you have the budget to do so and allow that to fuel using that piece of gear.
100%. I think that's a great call on the Digicam. And we'll link that episode as well in the description below, the 70-something. I can't remember what it was, but we talked about, tons of like fun little vintage digital cameras or more recent ones that are really viable options too. Like if you wanted some kind of fixed lens thing, you could totally check that out to see if you want to do that versus what we're about to talk about, which is interchangeable body camera classic. There's 2 routes for tier 2 that we could go, which we've officially entered, by the way. We're in tier 2 now. We're talking about spending a little bit of money on a camera body and a camera lens, interchangeable setup. Number 1 within tier 2, so tier 2, subsection A, there is a totally viable option here, which is buying, in our opinion, a really excellent camera still, a Canon 5D Mark II. You could do a Canon 5D Classic also, honestly. Anything within that early 5D from Canon, a DSLR, and get a Nifty 50 from Canon, which is their classic, plastic fantastic, the Canon EF 50mm 1.8. That combo right there, these days, probably run you about $300 total. I think,
crazy.
which is pretty insane. It's not, the lens isn't the most robust thing in the world, but it's renowned for being $100 total for that thing and providing, I think, pretty exceptional image quality for the money. It's insane. And then you get a full frame sensor too out of either of those cameras. I think the 5D Classic is definitely a little more less expensive than the Mark II, but either way, I think you're spending probably around like 150 to 200 for a body there. I'll actually look that up right now because we have our laptops here.
What's fascinating about the 5D Mark II, that was the camera I was like so obsessed with getting when I was a sophomore in college. Because I would look up short films shot on the 5D Mark II. I had read articles talking about how they filmed all of the SNL intro sequences on a 5D Mark II, that there was an entire show shot on the 5D Mark II.
Which one was that? Oh, wait, there's an episode of House.
No, maybe just an episode.
Yeah, they did shoot it on a 5D too.
I could have sworn they did a whole season with that camera. But yeah, that was arguably the camera that changed everything.
Yes. In the video world, especially.
Video world.
Yeah.
So many people saw that and was like, that was the first quote unquote hybrid camera and a full frame sensor that you could use for video in 1080.
Yes. It was the first full HD. Which is wild. Yeah. Just look this up from MPB too. So reputable online dealer of used cameras. You could get the 5D Mark II for $220 right now.
Wow.
You could get a 5D Classic for $159. So either of those paired with the Nifty 50 that we just talked about, roughly $100 brand new, you could get it pre-owned. You're looking at about $300 all in, probably less. And the reason we're recommending something like that is because it just, at least speaking personally, having a full frame sensor and a lens with a relatively shallow depth of field, max aperture of 1.8, there is something pretty magical about going from a phone or a crop sensor camera to like full frame, shallow depth of field. Like it just kind of ignites something in you. And it's really exciting to see that for the first time. And I think that would be a really good stepping stone combination because it just gets you excited. 50 is a really classic focal length. You'd be able to shoot a lot of different things with it. It's not going to be the fastest system, so it's not going to track sports or your kids very well, or anything that's going to be like fast moving, but you could totally use it in a studio setting for lifestyle stuff, for portraiture, so many situations that is still a very viable combination that will give to a lot of people's eyes like a very professional feeling result.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember the first session I did with the 5D Mark II and a 51.4. And I hit it at golden hour, backlit on a subject of this couple, and I was just like, I'm not the same. I am a different photographer now. Because the image just looked so different, and it was finally that look where I'm like, I've been going for this. And it was that aha moment. And then after that, because this is another interesting angle you could take, you could go rent lenses too.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Like if you get a job to shoot a family session or engagement session, you just want to pour all the money you make from that session back into just making it look better.
Yeah.
I would do that for weddings in the early days. I would rent the 35L, the 85L, and the 45 tilt shift. Those 3 lenses.
Nice. Okay.
And I did
so
it
you
from
rented
Borrow
those
Lenses.
before you bought them.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. Borrow Lenses got acquired by Lens Rentals
Yeah. Like this year,
recently.
I think in 2024. Yeah.
So you could go to lensrentals.com and do that same thing. But I saw it as a worthwhile investment. There was no way I could afford. I mean, all 3 of those lenses at that time were probably $6,000 total.
For sure.
5 to 6 grand
yeah,
total.
Totally. Yeah.
And so I couldn't afford that then, but I would elevate the quality of my work with that set of lenses until I booked enough stuff to then purchase those lenses and then not have to rent them anymore. But if you live in a major city like we do, you could go to Dodd Camera in Logan Square and you can rent one of those lenses for $30 over a weekend. It's just like, it's so approachable.
Yep.
So that's an option as well if you want to start playing with that kind of stuff.
Totally.
But the Nifty 50 is like,
Dude, it's a classic.
yeah, for what is, did you look up the price of Nifty 50?
Oh, I mean,
It's
still,
got to be like $50 now, not
I mean,
100.
I'm sure you could find one. Yeah.
Can you
I
find a
mean,
used one?
I don't know if they even stand up to being, I feel like you use it until it breaks.
Yeah.
I mean, the used ones, I found a used one is the Mark II of the Nifty 50 for $80 on B&H in great condition. I found one on MPB for 80 as well. That seems to be like the going rate, but brand new, it's, $110.
Yep.
Because they made I think a slightly updated version from the OG that had like a slightly different like focusing motor or something in it for better, more quiet, I think, autofocus with video. Really, whichever copy that you get of it, it's going to be great.
Right.
And it feels like you're kind of cheating the system a little bit by getting something that cheap and getting results that good.
Yeah.
Like you're like, I'm like getting away with something here, and I'm making something that is objectively so beautiful, and I didn't have to spend thousands of dollars to get this look.
Yeah.
I think that's why I said it's like a good stepping stone kind of system where it's like you feel like you are totally in control of the image. You're having fun while you're doing it. You can get professional, so to speak, professional looking results. And it's fun too. Also shoot raw,
Yes.
everything. We're just going to add these little bonus tips all
And
throughout
learn
the
how to
episode.
edit raw images.
Yes, shoot raw for all these. I think you can shoot raw on your iPhone if you want to also, but all the cameras that we'll talk about, shoot in raw because that's going to give you the best flexibility editing later on.
Do you feel, this is the first recommendation we give. This is what I typically recommend. Get an old camera, old system, really cheap.
Yeah.
Great results.
Yep.
Do you think the majority of people say yes to that recommendation?
Like people listening right now.
Yeah, not necessarily them, but if you gave this advice to somebody, do you think they follow through and actually get the old camera, or they like take out their credit card and get the new one?
I would say probably
4 times the price.
more often than not, they'll go for the new thing.
Right.
Yeah. But I will say, I think that might have to do more with video component.
Sure.
When you take that into consideration, I think photography, you can get away with getting older systems like this because like the 5D Classic doesn't even have video. And that's the cheapest body we'll talk about today. The 5D Mark II does. You got to manually focus everything. And it's only 1080 max, which still totally is viable. But for most client delivered things, you need 4K as like a standard now. So yeah, I think if video is involved, I think they'll probably always go for
sure.
the more modern option. Probably with some stills cases too, like strictly photo cameras. Even if we recommend something like this, there's definitely an allure, I think, of the more modern, more refined options that are out now.
Yeah, and not to go like on a huge philosophical rant about our culture and how how we're so obsessed with, even if we can't afford it, we still
Sure.
need the new thing.
Yeah.
Because you could get an older iPhone too, you know? And,
You could.
And yeah, the camera in the newest one is better than the 13, but you know, if that's cheaper for you, it's still a phenomenal camera. And you could do so much with it. And so, yeah, my challenge to listeners, if you're just wanting to get into photography, like be serious about at least receiving that advice and getting an older camera, even more so just because it's going to allow you to think more creatively.
Yes.
And not be so reliant on new technology. Like that stuff is going to come later for you if you keep upgrading your stuff.
Yep.
But so many people can burn themselves out in turning this into a career because they spend too much money on the front end and there's so much pressure to have to earn it back.
Yeah.
And so if you can get into it with a very low bill, there's just not a lot of pressure to have to pay yourself back or become profitable.
Yep.
It's just a cool hobby at that point, and you're not $4,000 in the hole and having to book an entire year of work and portrait sessions to pay that back.
Totally agree. And that's exactly why we started this whole episode, this tier list, with something that a lot of people already have access to, which is your phone. Just don't rush into things. Be wise with your money. It doesn't have to be the latest thing for it to be good. And you don't need the best stuff to be a good photographer by any means. Having said that, the tier 2 subsection B of this is if you do not want to go, Canon 5D Mark II with a nifty 50 for $300, and you do want something that's going to be a little faster, a little snappier, and has more accessible video options now with autofocus, with 4K, with all of that, we do have a few options as well. There is an APS-C camera from Canon called the Canon R50 that you could get if you want APS-C. That's totally fine. They also have an RF 35 millimeter 1.8. That combination would be roughly $1,000. If you wanted to get the 50 1.8, be about $750 total with the body and the lens. A 50 millimeter on a crop sensor isn't going to be maybe the best all-in-one kind of thing because you're getting roughly like an 80 to 85 millimeter equivalent for full frame terms.
I personally don't like that look at all.
Yeah, it's very tight. So it's not going to be as
like yo, that's tight.
No, it's tight. It is just very close on the face.
Yeah, if you're in a room like shooting, getting ready at a wedding, you're going to really struggle with that.
Pretty
setup.
tough. Yeah. So that might not be what you're looking at quite yet. Maybe this is just still in the realm of doing favors for friends, senior sessions, and like just kind of trading services with other people just to build a portfolio. You can definitely make that work, but I think getting something a little bit wider, if you're getting a crop sensor camera like the Canon R50, would be a better choice. Or alternatively, for roughly the same price, you could get a Canon R8 with the RF 50 millimeter 1.8. The Canon R8 is a full frame sensor. So for that kit, you're looking at about $1,200 total. You could probably get an R8 pre-owned and maybe like save a couple $100, but roughly $1,200 for a kit like that, which again would produce very similar results to the 5D Classic and Nifty 50 that we just talked about, but have much better video, autofocus, tilty screen.
Sure, you have 4K video.
4K video, much better autofocus. Like all the perks of a modern mirrorless camera. So within the Canon world, those would be two really great options for people that want that kind of classic, maybe roughly around $1,000 price point entry into the world of an interchangeable lens system. There are plenty of equivalents amongst so many camera brands, and we will take a second to make a quick aside and just say basically any camera that's been released in the last 15 years, if you like it, just you could use it. I mean, it's like anything's going to be good. Yeah. Like there's no bad options here. We're just putting together those little pairings so that you have easier options to get.
Trust us when we say it's so much more important to learn how to photograph than what you're photographing with.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
Like just learn shutter, aperture, ISO.
Yeah.
Figure out what those three things are.
Yep.
How it interacts with the camera you do choose to get.
Yep.
What thing does what.
Yes. What thing does what.
And then whatever road you take,
you'll get there. That needs to be a motivational poster on the wall for the set. Yeah. It's totally true though. Like the exact camera doesn't matter nearly as much as like you training your eye.
Yeah.
Go read photo books, go study other photographers' work, go just exist in the world, walk around, observe how light hits things and reflects off of, like, that is so much more important than any of this. This is just to help maybe you sift through the hundreds of options that exist out there and just focus on one thing that could help maybe just catalyze this momentum for you. So with that being said, we just built one Sony kit also because Canon and Sony are probably arguably the two highest selling options as far as like interchangeable lens.
Nikon is just not really in the game anymore, I feel.
I mean, I think they're probably still top 5, but what is,
But
I don't
not
know
in
what
the
that
days
means
of like
the,
when every other wedding photographer had a Nikon D750. You know what I mean? When that camera came out, everyone was like, "Wow, you can essentially underexpose this like 7 stops and it's perfectly fine." That was the craze like 8 years ago when I was in Facebook forums, everyone posting their wildly underexposed D750 photos and then saving it in post.
that was wild, actually. Yeah. I remember Sam Hurd did quite a bit of that because he loved the D750. He was a big Nikon shooter before switching to Canon about 7 years ago, I think. 6 years ago. He was the one that kind of convinced me to go mirrorless with Canon, which was very cool. I can't find any kind of ranking list. I do think actually, as of 2024, I think Canon was ranked as like the highest selling interchangeable lens camera brand, which I think has been pretty consistent for a while because of the amount of options that they have, but might be wrong. I can't find a list anywhere.
Well,
but
I mean, it almost feels apparent in the business model of Nikon with purchasing Red that they're needing to change some stuff up. It doesn't feel like they have the same grip on the photo market as they used to because they started turning into like the Uncle Al.
just because Sam came after them with the potato jokes.
Yeah. But that just, that kind of became.
Maybe, I don't know.
I mean,
It kind of became a meme, like actually.
yeah, but like outside of Sam too, everyone would clown on Nikon a bunch. And even just seeing what they did with Danny Gewirtz and getting more into, whoa, look at these cameras are actually like wildly cinematic on the video side.
I feel bad that they get so much flack because their cameras are absolutely incredible. I mean, all the mirrorless stuff that they've been doing is really amazing. And yeah, the Z6 Mark III that came out yesterday, I think it was announced yesterday. Yeah. Looks amazing. I mean, looks like a really impressive camera. So, but that's another great case where Danny made a short film with that camera as a little promotional piece. And yeah, the image looked great, but I also know that's because Danny's an amazing filmmaker.
Right.
You know, like I see that, I'm like, well, that doesn't mean the camera is necessary. I mean, yeah, the image looks cool and everything, but like Danny, I like the way he colors, the way he shoots, like his style and everything, that was what bled through more than anything else.
Totally.
So a quick aside on Nikon and Danny.
But Sony.
Yes, but Sony, yeah, because Canon and Sony are so popular, we just built out a quick little Sony kit, also kind of in the pre-owned realm. Again, buying gear pre-owned is a really great way to do it when you're first investing in stuff like this because you get a lot more mileage for your money. So a Sony a6000 plus the Sony 50mm 1.8, that combination there would be around $650. Similar issue with the R50 and the 50mm is that a Sony a6000 is a crop sensor as well. So the 50 would be, again, like a pretty tight, like 80 to 85 full frame equivalent. Not the most versatile setup, but you could swap that 50 out for a similar like 35mm from Rokinon and get, I think, roughly the same price point. And you'd have closer to like a 50mm equivalent with a 35 on a crop sensor. So I think that would be like more than enough camera for a lot of people. We also, just to preface, I guess not even preface, we've already been talking about it a lot, but we're listing a lot of prime lenses here versus zoom lenses because we generally recommend prime lenses as a great place to start because they offer that beauty of like a very fast maximum aperture. So you can get the shallow depth of field that I think a lot of younger photographers are really looking for and excited about. And if that is something that can spark your creativity, more power to you. That's amazing. There's nothing wrong with zoom lenses at all.
Still sparks my creativity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like there's any piece of gear can do that, but prime lenses are a really great way to get familiar with a standard focal length, train your eye to frame for that focal length before you even bring a camera up to it. And I think generally just make you a more decisive photographer rather than fiddling around with, a dozen different options on a zoom lens and maybe missing a moment because of that. So,
but it also forces you to move your body.
It does. Yep.
And that's just such a good practice as a beginner photographer. Just actually get up, move your legs, go to a different spot, recompose. You don't want to, because you're gonna lean on the comfort of sitting in the corner and zooming in and out. Because that's what you can do, and you're just missing out on a lot of opportunities for other perspectives. When you actually force your body to move, you are then given the opportunity to see things in a completely literal new light.
Yep. No, it's perfect. Okay, that is the end of tier 2. Again, just to recap, iPhone was tier 1 with a couple great apps. Specific ones we mentioned were Visco, Lightroom Mobile, Unfold, and Whiteogram. Amazing way to just get your feet wet without spending any extra money on any of this stuff. In tier 2, we talked about one body, one lens. You could go old school. You could get a 5D Mark II from Canon plus a nifty 50. All in, you're looking at about $300. Pretty awesome setup for that much money. Like that's pretty amazing.
Yep.
If you want something more modern in tier 2, you could do a Canon R50 with the RF 35mm 1.8 or the Canon R8 with the RF 50 1.8 for roughly $1,000 to $1,200. Pretty cool, pretty great value for the money, I think, there. And then if you want to do something pre-owned in the Sony world, something like the Sony a6000 with a 50mm 1.8 for roughly $650, so pretty good savings there, or a Rokinon 35mm 1.8 for a slightly wider perspective.
And you can get autofocus with the Rokinon.
You know what? Let me check that real quick.
Because, that could be a huge deal breaker.
Let me check. I found it on B&H. I'm not very familiar with Sony yet.
Yeah.
Even though I am technically a Sony shooter now.
Something that was very popular, handful of years ago was doing all the Sigma lenses with Canon bodies.
Oh, yeah.
The Sigma Art lenses, everyone raved about the 35 1.4 Art until everyone's broke. And Jay still has his. It's completely broken.
Oh, dude,
used on that film.
That thing is so busted.
Yeah.
No, it has autofocus. Yeah, cool. It is a Rokinon 35mm 1.8 autofocusing lens for $290.
Nice.
On sale right now on B&H, I should mention. Regularly, it's $400. So
not sponsored.
Not sponsored at all. Hey, B&H, if you're interested, that'd be super cool. So either way, you're looking at well under $1,000 for that Sony pairing, which is amazing. Last tier 3. We're talking about
the big dogs.
You've gotten through the iPhone. You got your first interchangeable lens system, and you're like, you know what? I love this so much. I want it to be my career. Or at least a side gig where you are covering events, you're doing stuff out in the world. Clients are paying you good money to do this work.
This kit would be the kit that you would need to get hired as a second shooter at a wedding.
That's a great way to put it. Yes. Yeah. So
do you at least have this setup?
100%. That's a great way to look at it. And this is going to be focusing specifically on the cameras and lenses, not as much the peripheral accessories that are probably expected as well. But this would be the bare minimum that you'd need for, second shooting at a lot of weddings, or at least what a lot of photographers, I think, would expect you to have at a wedding. So the two kits, number one, we're going to lead with the Canon kit because we obviously have more experience with that. A pair of two Canon R6s, the Mark I, the first generation one. Each of those could be picked up pre-owned for roughly $1,500 to $1,600, somewhere in that ballpark, which I think for that camera is pretty great price.
Yeah.
I had one for about a year. I loved it.
Same.
I just sold mine to upgrade to an R5. It's an excellent camera, low light monster,
right.
Autofocus reads your mind, no complaints. Like amazing camera.
Just explain real quick what the difference of it being a low light monster versus an R5.
So when we talk about low light performance in cameras, generally speaking, a camera with lower megapixels, which a lot of people kind of associate as like not a great thing,
not good,
actually performs better in low light. So at higher ISOs, when you're kicking up your digital enhancement, which is what the ISO is, it's just cranking up the sensitivity of the sensor to a higher amount. yes, your camera can see in lower light situations, but the cost is that at higher ISOs, the higher it gets, the grainier, the noisier, and the more color
Discolored.
shifting that you see in your image. So a Canon R6, when I did have it at weddings, I could easily shoot at ISO 10,000, ISO 12,800 and get totally usable, clean images. I would add a little noise reduction in post, but totally fine to deliver to a client. Wild. You have less ability to crop on a 20 megapixel sensor, so you need to really nail everything when you are shooting it in real time. But the trade-off with going to an R5, which has a 45 megapixel sensor, yes, you have all that room to crop for days. Amazing. And that is very valuable for a certain kind of photographer, but with all those extra pixels, you get much worse high ISO performance. I wouldn't really ever like to push more than like 6,400 or 8,000 on the R5. Prefer not to when I did. So that's kind of like it in a nutshell. There's a lot more technicality behind it, but generally speaking, lower megapixel, less ability to crop, but better low light performance. Higher megapixel, more ability to crop, and worse high ISO performance.
And that seems to be the argument or the debate that a lot of photographers have in the wedding world specifically. Which one do I go for? Honestly, a great workaround if you have the budget is to get one of each. You know,
you totally
and you
could.
have the option to do both because they're both full frame.
Yeah.
But even just thinking about what we just talked about, I remember when I had the 5D Mark II and was shooting that at weddings.
Yeah.
I couldn't shoot over 2,500 ISO.
Yeah.
Just horrible noise in low light.
Yeah.
So again, if you're trying to second shoot a wedding with a 5D Mark II, might need to be using some flash there.
Right.
You're not really going to be able to shoot in low light settings, even with a prime lens all the way wide open.
Yep.
And another reason why this next tier is so important to be starting to get into the professional realm, getting hired to do this kind of work.
Yep. For things that are not just daylight portrait sessions or controlled lighting like in a studio.
Natural light photographer.
Yeah. You can see right through that. Okay, so two R6s. You're looking at roughly $3,000 for the pair of them. So it's two camera bodies. The reason we say two camera bodies for a lot of things is so you have one, versatility. You can have a prime lens on each camera, two focal lengths always at the ready, and redundancy. If one camera, for whatever reason, breaks, you can still do your job. And that's the most important part of being in this tier where you're being paid to deliver a service to a client. And to boot, each of those cameras have dual SD card slots as well. So you can always be writing redundant recordings of your images to each card.
And that's why you wouldn't recommend just the EOS R versus the R6 in this situation.
I mean, yes. And I also used the R for like 3 years and I never had an issue with it. I could get into the technicality of all that. If
people get real worked up about one card slot.
Dude, they get really worked up about one card slot. And I'm like, yes, I agree. Like I would always choose two over one if I had to.
So much so that they call the police on you.
I know. Take me away. Straight to jail. One card slot? How dare you? However, I think what most people neglect is that one SD cards, the reason they fail primarily is because of physical damage to them.
Yeah.
And so to actually reference back to Sam Hurd for a second, he was the one, switched to mirrorless for Canon, loved it, convinced me to do the same thing. His workaround for the R having only one card slot was to never take the SD card out of the camera.
Yeah.
You treat it like it's internal storage, and then you use the USB-C port on it to transfer images out. And that's what I did the entire time I had the R. I never took the SD card out.
Because even if your USB-C port breaks, you could take the card out of the camera.
Yeah, you're still good to go. And the USB-C port never broke either. So treating it like it's internal storage and just being precious with your media is, I think, more important actually than having two card slots, because this is a little soapbox I could get on for sure. But I think in terms of priority, buying good media is more important.
Yes.
Buying it from a reputable source and not from Amazon or any place that could possibly have a gray market SD card. Also shooting two camera bodies. I would rather have two camera bodies with one card slot each than one camera with two card slots in it. 100%. Because again, you're talking
Drop
about
in water.
Yeah, you're talking about redundancy in your camera first and foremost. Like again, if one camera breaks and it has two card slots and you only had one camera at the wedding, you're totally out of luck. But if you have two cameras, that still takes priority for me at least, rather than having like necessarily 2 card slots in each camera.
Yeah.
Have redundant cameras first. So I'll put this in a little ranking. Buy good media.
Yep.
Have 2 cameras. And then, yes, if they can each have 2 card slots, obviously, yes, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
That is definitely the preference. I'm not trying to undersell that,
No.
but I think people get very worked up about that and don't necessarily treat the media itself well, or consider maybe the camera bodies that they're using or the amount of cameras that they have, the redundancy that they have at an event. Because I do think that just takes precedent personally. Yes, dual card slots are very important also. I would argue almost essential, but just got to take all of those things like a grain of salt here.
It's also just so fascinating. I mean, we're obviously speaking in the realm of wedding photography. I mean, in the days of film wedding photography, whole rolls would just completely get ruined or lost in the, like, destroyed.
Yeah.
And people would just be like, yeah, didn't get my wedding photos. And now today it's like, if I don't get my wedding photos, you're going to die.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there are so many safeguards now.
Right.
Yeah.
What's fascinating too, going back to what we were talking about, 5D Mark II, 1 card slot.
Yes.
So
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
And that is like an ancient card. It's the CF.
Regular C compact flash.
Compact flash. Big chunky guy. Yeah. Interesting conversation. Glad because there have been comments on stuff that we've said here of just like, man, 1 card slot. That's so dangerous.
Yeah.
No?
It's like, well, the other thing too, keep media fresh also. You know, like if you are constantly jamming it in and out of the camera, refresh those cards every year.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of safeguards that I think could be put before, like, oh, well, it has to be dual card slots. It's like, well, have you thought about these 3 other things first and then gotten to that dual card slot conversation, which again, huge advocate for. I do think that is essential, especially for wedding stuff. But yeah, good aside, I think, within this tier. So yes, the R6s, get both of them for around that $3,000 price point, maybe a little bit more.
And then lenses.
An RF 35 millimeter 1.8 and an RF 85 millimeter 1.8, a very classic pairing of focal lengths.
35-85.
35-85, easy, reliable. Those lenses in total, I believe, run about $1,000 for the pair.
Yeah.
So you're looking at this whole kit for, again, roughly speaking, things change. At the time of recording, roughly $4,000 all in, which I think is pretty comparable to what we probably invested in when we first started out, like in a dual camera system. I think covers a ton of territory creatively.
Yep.
Gives you plenty to work with as a photographer, primary or as a second shooter. And again, you have those fast apertures and pretty great low light cameras that make them especially good for something like a wedding day.
Yeah. Yeah, that used to be my go-to, 35-85. And now that I've progressed into this new era, I'm now on 50 on my right hip and 15 to 35 2.8 on my left.
Cool. Okay.
All day, pretty much.
Yep.
So, and the reasoning for that is that I think I'm less afraid to get closer to people. And so that might be the progression for you as well. If you're kind of progressing through your career, you might, like 35 is a wide angle lens, but for it to be wide, you can't be super close.
Yeah.
And then 85 is definitely like, I'm not close to you kind of lens. And it's hard to use it as a detail lens as well. So that's where I really, and just the RF 50 is insane.
Oh yeah,
so
the
many ways.
1.2 is ridiculous. Still one of my favorite lenses ever.
But but then just getting into further into that conversation is the 50 on an R5 with 45 megapixels is an 85 if I want it to be, if I want to crop and post.
Sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So.
Yep. So that's like the Canon setup for, again, roughly like $4,000, which for, if you think of it as you're kind of starting your business, right? Like in its investment in a business, relatively low.
2
investment,
weddings.
All things
I keep saying
considered.
weddings. It's not just weddings.
We're not, it's not, but like that is our background.
Usually,
so it does
I mean,
make sense for us to
a
be
lot of
talking about that a little
photographers who are getting started don't need 2 camera bodies in this tier if they're not shooting weddings.
That is definitely correct. Yeah.
So
okay, so let's actually, so if they're in this tier, let's brainstorm like an alternative $4,000 setup.
Oh, with just one camera.
Just one camera, That could be kind of interesting. Maybe if you're just looking to be more in like the studio range.
R6, 28 to, what is it?
70.
No,
oh, the F2?
Yeah, the F2.
That one, the 28 to 70. Yeah, that could be a cool combo.
Because it's F2.
Yeah, that would run you about 4,500. If you get the 28 to 70 pre-owned at a good deal, it could be 4 even.
It's chunky.
That lens is massive, but you do, yeah. That's a cool idea. Yeah, you could also, yeah. I mean, a constant f2 across 28 to 70.
That is an R6 with that lens is a dream second shooter setup.
Yeah,
that's what my second shooter had this last weekend.
You can cover
Perfect.
a lot of ground with that.
He had an R5, but yeah.
Yeah,
there it is.
Yep, great, sick.
Yeah, and then
that's the RF 28 to 70 from Canon.
Yeah.
Yep.
And at that point, you're like, that's a full blown like pro level setup, even with an R6.
Yeah, that is that lens brand new is $3,000.
Right.
So pre-owned, you can get it probably around 26.
If you're shooting a commercial session, then maybe you just rent an R5 body to get more megapixels. But you build your business off of that setup, and then start upgrading to another body and maybe a prime lens or two after that.
Yep. Love that.
That's brand new territory. Like that zoom lens at f2 did not exist before.
No, that is one area where Canon innovated of all things, which is very cool. They did. I mean, that was a groundbreaking lens when they released it. Never has there been a 28 millimeter to 70 at f2.
The ground when you dropped it.
Oh, I thought it broke my foot when it dropped it. That thing is so
heavy.
It's massive. Yeah. You just need to get a Black Rapid wrist strap to go with it also. Clamp your hand to that thing. That's a non-negotiable for that lens.
Bionic Man with the quarter 20 out of your wrist, and it's just the lens is always attached to you.
Always. Okay, so like we did in the last year, also we'll just offer up a Sony equivalent as well. Another really popular option, which might be maybe more appealing for some people as well. So 2 Sony A7 IVs, which I should preface this by saying this option is going to be inherently a little more expensive, I think. So 2 Sony A7 IVs with the same Rokinon 35mm 1.8 that I mentioned earlier, and a Sony 85mm 1.8 as well. So same lens options, same equivalents there as the Canon kit that we just mentioned. But this kit overall, brand new, if you got all of it, would be around $6,000. If you got the bodies pre-owned at a pretty good price, you could shave maybe roughly $1,000 off. Same with the lenses. I think at minimum, though, you're probably looking at $5,000 for this kit versus the roughly $4,000 of the Canon kit. Here's the situation where this might actually be more interesting to you to spend that extra $1,000 to $2,000. The Sonys have 33 megapixel sensors as opposed to the Canon's 20. Still perform very well in low light, but have substantially more megapixels if cropping is something that is important to you. Additionally, I would argue that the A7 IV is a much better hybrid video camera than the R6 is. The R6 can shoot good enough video, but I think the Sony is just a better video camera if we're looking at those two things.
3.
Yeah.
As opposed to C-Log 3, which is not as good as C-Log 2.
Yeah. I never really loved shooting video on my R6 when I had it. It just felt like something was missing. The colors never came out exactly how I wanted it. So I would say if you are in a position, even though we've talked really primarily about stills this entire time, photography, if you're remotely interested in filmmaking and want to create something or invest in a system that allows you to create equally good photos and videos, I think the Sony would be a wiser investment. You also get that higher megapixel count as well for your photo work. Even though it is going to be a little more expensive, you do get those benefits. If you're on a super tight budget, the Canon can totally pass as a great stills camera and a good enough video camera for some stuff, though I wouldn't necessarily recommend that as a video camera to people.
That's why you see so many people flocking to Sony for hybrid shooting.
Totally, yeah. They really dominate in that area.
There's no camera in the Canon line that is, and we've discussed this in a previous episode. R5C sort of, but not really.
But not the price point. The A7 IV is $2,500 new.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you get S-Log 3 out it, great. And that's where they're really making so many gains in bringing people over to them and bringing new customers to Sony. is that they're just giving people what they want.
Yep.
So my question for you then is, if it was the same question, not two bodies, would you still be at the A7 IV with one?
Honestly, maybe. I mean, the A7 IV is so good.
Yeah.
It is a really excellent camera. And I guess I can kind of speak to it a little personally because the A7C II that I now own is essentially an A7 IV in a different style body with a few upgrades.
Same sensor.
I believe so. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. And like, I think there's like a different chip. So like there's maybe like better autofocus or ISO performance. I'm not totally sure. Essentially though, is an A7 IV in a different body. And I love it. It's amazing. I don't see, like, I've been able to crop really easily on the 33 megapixels. Everything's performed really wonderfully as far as autofocus and build quality is concerned. So I think instead of trying to upgrade the body, just getting a better lens rather than the Rokinon or the 51.8 from Sony that we just mentioned, I think if anything, I would say the A7 IV with the Sony G Master 50 1.4 that I bought, because that all in would actually be under $4,000.
Okay.
Which is pretty nice. I think around 30, the be 3,800 total. And I vouch for that Sony G Master because that's the first lens that I bought for it as well, my A7C II, and I adore that lens. It is amazing. It's a really excellent 50 millimeter lens. 50 is my personal favorite focal length, so I'm kind of biased in that regard, but I think it is a really good standard focal length to recommend to people. I believe Sony has a G Master 35 1.4 that's around that same price point. So if you preferred 35, you could get something similar with the A7 IV for around that same price point. But like, I think $3,800 for the A7 IV with that 50 in particular is pretty awesome image quality.
You said it's 1.4, the G Master 50? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's really not that much different than the RF 50 1.2.
Not a ton. And the size and weight difference is pretty substantial. Yeah, I will say actually, alternatively, if you wanted a little more range, kind of like the 28 to 70 that you mentioned for Canon, getting an A7 IV, I was taking brand new prices into consideration too. If you got the Sony, the 50 and like a pre-owned A7 IV, you'd actually be looking at like maybe 3,300.
Nice.
So even less. Pretty awesome. If you wanted a little more range, Sigma, I think 2 weeks ago it was, released a 28 to 45 1.8.
For Sony mount.
Yes. And I think L mount for like a Panasonic users as well. I think it's 28 to 45. I'm going to check that actually really quick just to make sure that we're getting all of our
facts it's crazy to see zoom lenses get that wide of aperture now.
Yes. Yeah. It's the Sigma 28 to 45 1.8 constant aperture across all those ranges is pretty cool for $1,349 from B&H right now.
Big?
Pretty big. Yeah. It is pretty big, but
it seems like you can't do that without making the lens large.
That's the thing. Like physically speaking,
it has to be wide.
If you want a bright aperture, you need more glass in there and more elements and all these different pieces that come together that just literally make it bigger. Like you can't really avoid that. I think if this was a 28 to 70 like Canon's, it would have been the same size.
Yeah.
There's not really much you can do about it.
Right.
But I think to have basically a 28 1.8, 35, and a 45 1.8 like all across the board, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I might even actually recommend that more, just because you get so much more range out of that rather than the Sony G Master 1.4 50 millimeter lens.
But we don't necessarily know the long-term effects of that lens. It could be similar to the Art series where they start breaking down, or the autofocus doesn't work because it's not native as well.
Yeah.
Those factors.
Yep.
Again, another really good reason to rent that stuff before you purchase it. And buying used gear, would you recommend MPB?
MPB is great. KEH is also really great. And then you can sometimes get really lucky like Gene has on Facebook Marketplace with stuff, but I would
roll the dice.
50-50. It's roll the dice. That's totally your call. This is not professional advice. But yeah, MPB and KEH definitely highly recommend because they have great return policies, great vetting programs for all those things as well.
But if you were going to go to eBay for cameras, what would it be for, Steven?
It would be for photography. What did you say?
Tier 4?
Tier 4? Oh, what's tier 4? Did you add a tier 4?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, you did add. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. I forgot we're still talking about film in this episode.
Is it too long?
I've been taking my sweet time.
Oops.
Tier 4. Okay, wait. Yes.
Speed round.
Speed round. Okay, well, I'm just going to wrap that up. You heard, the R6 combo, the Sony a7 IV combo. If you're down to one body and one lens, an a7 IV with the Sigma 28 to 45 1.8, I think would be a fantastic combination for about $3,500. Very cool.
So then, last question in that tier is, what's your body count?
Ew. Wait, what? Gotta ask me about my shutter count first, dude. Dang, man. Ugh.
You've been through how many cameras? Like real?
Like actually?
Yeah.
Digital cameras?
Yeah.
Okay. Am I starting from the beginning?
You just went, ew.
Ew. I was like, that's gross. Did you know what you were saying when you said that? Okay, cool. I'm just making.
It's a double entendre.
Yes, okay, good. I'm just making sure. You just don't know.
That's not associated at all with what we were talking about. I don't have no idea what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? No, I have no idea.
I was talking about your camera
I was
bodies.
talking about your camera bodies, dude. Okay, Canon 60D, number 1. Canon 5D Mark III, number 2. Canon R.
You had 5D Classic? Oh, no, you got that later.
I got it later.
R3?
R. I got the R6.
R6 is fourth.
R5.
R5, 5.
A7C2.
So you've been through 6 in your professional career.
I'm on my 6th camera, my professional. Well, I don't know if the 60D counts. No, it does. I used that for student photography when I was a college student, and I was getting paid for that. So
counts.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Film.
This is the
Such
B-side.
a common question.
So
I want to
we
get
just
into film
covered-
photography.
We just covered all of the good stuff for digital. Now, what is the best camera to start with for film? I feel like
Your
there's...
hand's totally in focus. If you're watching on YouTube.
I totally forgot that was right there.
It's just, you held it there, your hand.
What are those? Really hope people watch this episode.
Yeah.
We're getting so sweaty and excited about all. It's so hot in here.
very hot.
Our little engine that could, our tiny AC unit,
Is
up
not
here
doing it.
is not doing a good job. So we don't have to do the whole tier thing that we just did for all the digital stuff, but I think broadly speaking, there's probably 2 directions that you could go. And I think when people ask me this question, at least, the 2 answers I give are, 1, either get a cheap point and shoot.
Mm-hmm.
The benefits of that are that you have a built-in flash, which is really nice.
Yes.
It's pocketable.
Yeah.
It has autofocus. Makes your life very easy.
Yeah.
It's literally point and shoot. I think that's a really great way to, it's almost similar to like the iPhone tier that we had for the digital stuff. It's like, just be excited about the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other way that you could go is a Canon AE1, which is a very classic, iconic camera with the little 51.8 that it came with. It was a renowned student camera for a very long time. It's just like, it's like the de facto film camera. It feels like when people think about a film camera.
Yeah.
And that little combo, you have more control over your images. No autofocus, obviously, because you're manually focusing everything, but you, I think, feel a little more ownership over those images.
Absolutely.
You can control your shutter speed. You understand the whole triangle, the exposure triangle, which is aperture, shutter speed, ISO, and the ISO being the film stock that you're using, that rating, the sensitivity it has to light. Everything about it feels like you just have more creative control over it, even though it is a little larger. A little less convenient, maybe, than a point and shoot.
So that second one just might be so overwhelming to someone who first hasn't even been in photography at all yet.
Yep.
You're like, if you haven't even touched a camera, point and shoot.
Yep.
If you want to get into film.
Totally.
That's someone who's like, I just want a film camera. I'm not a photographer. Get a point and shoot.
Get a point and shoot, absolutely.
If you've already been established in what you, like basic fundamentals in photography, definitely start looking into more of a manual focus 35 film camera. No one is jumping into medium format right away.
No,
And
I
that's
wouldn't.
silly.
No.
You said 2 routes, and I was going to be like, oh yeah, panoramic medium format or large format.
Hasselblad X-Pan or
$6,000 35 millimeter
you get
camera.
4 photos per roll of film.
But okay, so out of point and shoots, what's your recommendation?
I mean, anything from Olympus I think is really good.
Olympus Stylus.
The Stylus series
Stylus
is,
zoom.
again, pretty like classic. If you can get something within the Mu 1, 2, 3, 4, anything within those, great. Those are like the I want to say the prime lens there's prime lens versions and there's zoom versions of the
Yes.
stylus series. So again, just depending on your taste, if you want the option to zoom, get the zoom one. If you don't care about it, you want like a slightly wider or faster aperture, you can get the prime lens one. It's totally up to you.
Just a note, those are more likely to break down on you and be impossible or expensive to fix versus like a Canon AE1, where you're probably going to have more success in getting that fixed for cheaper, I would assume.
There's a reason there are so many of those still around now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just buy another one.
Yeah.
Or the styluses will run you 100 to 150.
Yeah, depending on which model. I mean, there's a lot of nuance to the film world and the rarity of certain models and like the aperture and everything. So you can get like the stylus zoom, I think, for around $150.
Frustrating thing about those cameras though, they can miss focus and you just don't even know. So that can be frustrating. You get the scans back and you're like, oh, this one moment that I was banking on, this film photo I wanted with my, rock star idol, it missed focus.
For sure.
That sucks.
For
I
sure.
mean, you had the built-in flash, so your AE1 probably couldn't have even taken it in the dark venue in the first place. But just so you know that is a possibility, and that's just kind of the nuance of you never know what you're gonna get kind of vibe. And I don't really know if there's a way you can control that really.
Yeah.
Maybe shooting your subject in the center of the frame as best as possible.
Yeah. I have less personal experience with the stylus series specifically. I've put like a couple rolls through borrowed cameras, but
I know I've heard people saying that the Mew really struggles with it sometimes.
interesting. Okay.
And I might be wrong in which one. It might be the stylus, just the stylus. That one, the one that Gene has, the black one, I think. I've heard that some of those smaller clamshell ones really struggle with back focusing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, it's just one of those starter film cameras. Or just like pick up a couple disposables and just kind of see what that's like.
Disposables or like the half frame Ektar from Kodak is awesome also. I
And
mean,
did you see that?
the Pentax 17.
Pentax just came out with one.
Which is another half frame, which is really interesting.
No one's coming out with a 35 mil except Leica.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who shot that commercial?
We are
that
is that you? We are going to dig into that more though in a future episode soon about where film is at currently.
Yeah.
So we will talk more long form about some of these things that we're mentioning right now in a upcoming episode, which is very exciting. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, honestly, like if you're just starting out with film, more than anything, kind of go back to the philosophical stuff for a second. Just be okay with mistakes.
Yeah.
Be okay with things not turning out perfectly.
Yeah.
That is kind of the beauty of film a little bit. You might have light leaks in the camera that you get. You might see frame burns. You might see missed images. You might, beef different rolls. Like
it's fun.
Things will not go as planned, and that is part of the fun of it. And I think having that mentality going into it at the start is part of like the whimsy of film, and hopefully will just spark that excitement to get you interested in, the same evolution, looking at more robust 35 millimeter cameras or getting into medium format film and kind of, again, like we did with the digital cameras in this episode, kind of ranking up those tiers a little bit and taking it more and more seriously until you have a certain understanding of what your look is and what you want to be creating with your images.
Yeah.
And that's the most important part about all this, right? Like, again, you heard our hearts behind everything. We were trying to keep price points down like as low as humanly possible, even in the dual body, dual lens setups and everything. We're looking for things that are not going to break the bank, not put you into any financial peril, and just use resources that you currently have, resources that were created 20 years ago, and just find the joy in all of those things. And I hope that's what you took away from this episode at the end of the day, because that's what matters most.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I really want to end it there just very quickly.
Yeah.
The different film.
Oh, film stocks.
Man, you were just, that was such a good conclusion.
I was really cooking.
Just quickly.
Okay. You have.
Ultramax.
Yeah. Kodak. Yep.
Kodak Ultramax.
Yep.
Or Gold 200.
Great. Awesome.
They're not high speeds.
Nope.
If you're going to pay for Portrait 800 or Cinestill 800T, it's going to be way more expensive.
Yep. Pro Image 100 from Kodak also. Really great.
Or some black and white.
Oh, black and white's great. HP5. Tri-X from Kodak. HP5 from Ilford. Yeah. Again, keeping prices low. Everyone's heard of Portra, but let's just keep prices accessible again. Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we just put that part before your philosophical rant at the end. Just give it a little whoop. Beep.
And if you are really enjoying the conversation that we briefly had at the end about film, we will be talking much longer form about it in an upcoming episode, which we're very excited about.
Yeah,
that's going to be a
really
fun one.
Yep.
So yeah, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for hearing our hearts in all this. We hope you learned something in this. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. And also, like I already mentioned, there are obviously so many camera brands and pairings and things out there that it would be impossible for us to cover all the potential pairings at each price point. So what we'd love to hear from you is what little combinations that you have of different lenses, whether they're primes or zooms or different bodies from Fuji, Nikon, Panasonic, all these different brands. There's so many cool combinations out there. Help out a friend in the comments below and leave those combinations that you think would be really good for the money.
That's great. And I just wanted to also say thank you so much for the support recently. There's been some serious steam behind Rally Caps this year, especially in the last few months. We feel like we've unlocked something on YouTube. It's growing. It's really fun to see a response, see a lot of comments and people's likes. So we just want to say thank you as well. It's been really, really cool to see some growth on this. And yeah, we just hope that these topics keep resonating with you. You're always welcome to comment different topics that you'd like to hear from us as well down below. Shoot us a DM on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram.
Yeah. Oh, we have an Instagram.
We do.
Yeah.
So that's the end of this episode. Good job.
Bye.
See ya.